I found the envelope sitting on my porch before the sun had even burned off the morning mist. No name, no note, just a thin seal across the flap. Inside were photographs me walking across my own land, my truck parked by the barn, the windows of my house shot through a telephoto lens from God knows where. That's when I knew this wasn't just a petty squabble with some HOA president. Someone was watching me and they wanted me to feel it. They wanted me to know that I was a target. The first time I ever laid eyes on Angela Faircraft-Oft, she was marching toward me like she owned the earth under her heels. Clipboard clutched like a weapon, nails polished to a mirror shine. She barked before I even had the chance to shut my truck door. "Excuse me, you can't park there, that's private property." I adjusted my hat, half wondering if she'd lost her mind. "Ma'am, I own this property." She didn't blink. "Oh, no, you don't. This ranch falls under the jurisdiction of Oak Hollow Homeowners Association and you're trespassing." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the audacity was so off the charts it barely registered as real. "This land's been in my family for 150 years. I just inherited it. My name's Trevor Jennings." She stiffened, smirked, and flipped her clipboard like she'd already signed away my rights. "That may be so, but you'll still follow our covenants. You're fencing your barn, that truck, you're already in violation." I looked out over the same split-rail fence my great-great-grandfather had built with his own hands. The cattle grazing beyond it hadn't changed since the Civil War. The only new thing out here was Angela. "You're mistaken. This ranch predates your HOA by a century and a half." But she only leaned in with that fake smile. "We voted to annex your land. Beautification purposes. You can't just vote to steal private property," I told her flatly. She didn't even blink. "Actually, we can." I could feel my jaw tighten, but I stayed calm. "And then I dropped it, Angela. I'm not just some guy in a cowboy hat with a deed. I'm the governor of this state." That made her pause. Just for a heartbeat. Then she recovered chin up, still clinging to that clipboard. "Governor or not, you'll be hearing from our legal team." I walked away that day telling myself she'd realize how far out of her lane she was. But I knew better. She wasn't the type to quit. She was the type to double down until she either got her way or dragged everyone into the dirt with her. The very next morning, sure enough, she rolled back in with backup 2 guys in polos and khakis. One with a measuring wheel, the other with a drone case. They looked like rent-a-cops pulled out of a strip mall parking lot, but the moment they stepped on my gravel, it became criminal trespass. "We're conducting a topographic inspection," Angela declared like she was announcing a parade. "Article 16 authorizes us to access your pasture." I pointed straight at the security camera on the fence post. "That's 2 counts of trespassing and 1 unauthorized surveillance device." One of the Polo twins hesitated, but Angela doubled down again. "You think status puts you above consequence?" she hissed. I leaned in just enough for her to hear every word. "No, that's why I follow the law, and that's why I know when someone else is breaking it." They left, but her stare lingered like my land owed her something she couldn't buy. That night, when I found those photos left on my porch, I'll admit something I nearly broke. I walked the fence line twice with a flashlight in hand, checking every post, every shadow. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't safe on the land I was born to protect. For the first time in a long time, I thought maybe I should walk away, maybe sell the ranch, maybe admit she was too dug in, too dirty, too relentless for me to stop. I sat on the porch staring at the horizon and asked myself, what if she's right? What if I can't fight this machine? But then came the cracks in her armor. Darla, the records clerk, told me Angela had been lobbying the zoning board for months, peddling fake beautification grants in exchange for votes. Deputy Ramirez, an Army vet who'd moved out here for quiet, looked at the surveillance photos and told me, point blank, this wasn't amateur stuff, this was professional surveillance. And then Evelyn walked into my life. A woman with tired eyes and a voice heavy from being ignored. She showed me her farmhouse before and after. Red door ivy curling up the porch rail, then rubble. Demolition notice signed on HOA letterhead by a compliance officer who didn't exist. That was it. That was the moment. My doubts burned off like morning fog. This wasn't just about me anymore. Angela wasn't just overstepping. She was orchestrating a racket using HOA power to intimidate, condemn, and steal land. And she'd been winning until now. So I gathered allies. Ramirez started a record. James Lorne, a former city planner, handed me internal emails and budget requests proof Angela had requisitioned funds for a private enforcement arm, the same polo shirt goons who had stomped onto my ranch. I didn't see a neighborhood board anymore. I saw organized crime hiding behind HOA stationery. We set the trap on a moonless night. On the eastern ridge, we left a decoy trailer, a fake invoice taped to the windshield marked Survey Equipment Drop Site. We rigged the gravel with motion sensors and hid state troopers in the tree line. At 1:30 a.m., the alarms tripped. 2 figures in dark clothing slipped across my fence. One carried a crowbar, the other that same drone bag. The troopers moved fast, silent, precise. Within seconds, both men were on the ground, cuffed, and read their rights. One was an ex-con with a record for breaking and entering. The other had been part of a shady property reclamation firm out of Arizona that had already been shut down for illegal evictions. Their paychecks traced straight back to Angela's shell company in Nevada. She couldn't spin, it couldn't deny it. Her entire facade crumbled overnight. By sunrise, her house had been raided, her laptop seized. Investigators found encrypted files, photos of targeted homes marked with red X's, spreadsheets titled Reclaim Targets Q3. The evidence stacked up so fast it buried her. Racketeering, fraud, unlawful surveillance, extortion. When the cuffs finally closed around her wrists, she didn't look like a president anymore. She looked exactly like what she was, a criminal who thought she could bully people into surrendering their lives. That was the end of Angela. The end of Oak Hollow HOA. The court dissolved it permanently. Every annexation she'd pushed was reversed, every stolen property flagged for restitution. And me, I didn't throw a party. I didn't celebrate. I stood on my porch with a black coffee in hand, watching the sunset bleed over the ridge. The ranch was quiet again. No SUVs, no drones, no strangers with clipboards pretending to own the dirt my family had bled into for generations. Just peace, finally. And here's what I learned: power means nothing if it isn't bound by law, and if you let fear silence you, the bullies win every time.